Good morning. My name is Shaya Lugano. I am in Nres 105 with Dr. Jennifer, and I'm here today with my friend.
Hi, I'm Abigail. I'm a junior in the Geese College of Business studying marketing and management, and I'm here to answer some questions about climate change.
Yeah. All right. So the first question I wanted to ask was, how do you feel about climate change?
I think climate change is a really important issue right now. I've heard that we only have like a few years for it to be fixed until it's irreversible, if it's not already irreversible by now. And I think it's like something that we've been taught since elementary school. And so I think the generation kind of coming up next, at least my generation and your generation, is going to start taking it a little bit more seriously than maybe what our parents did. And so I think that's kind of encouraging because we're going to see some change happening soon, I think.
I agree. As we have been growing up, our awareness and our knowledge about it has increased a lot, and yeah, I think so. My second question is, how do you think climate change currently affects your life or the lives of others you care about?
So I guess like the biggest example I could think of is the weather recently. I remember like when I was younger, I think it would really start to get like summery around May and then kind of be done by like the late September, early October. But this year, I remember, or last November, it was 70s until like the last week of November. And then now it's like it's still not warm and it's like the middle of May. So I think like we're seeing the seasons kind of like shift over, which is kind of interesting. I like wonder how that'll affect like farming and like summer breaks and how people vacation and like all that kind of stuff. So I think that like affects the economy in a lot of ways too.
That's good. I was in our class, we had this discussion post that had us explore how climate change affects the lives of others, and I was looking into how it affects people in Congo, where I'm from, and the shifts and the changes like agriculture affects the farmers in Congo, and then it affects the food supply.
Wow.
And when I was looking at the data between countries of the ones who contributes to the most of climate change effects, like Congo, a underdeveloping country, affects like one of the very least, but they have to deal with the most consequences because they don't have enough supplies or enough resources to deal with it. So
wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like how the climate and the weather can affect so many other parts of our lives. It's interesting.
Yeah. How do you think climate change will affect your life or the lives of others you care about in the future?
I think that climate change will continue to kind of like plague us until we make a change. I'm more concerned about like how it'll affect my children's life, about having like clean air or clean water, because I think we take it for granted.
Chicken.
Okay, we kind of take it for granted right now because like we have unlimited access, but I think if we don't make changes, like our water supplies are going to be polluted, and then we're going to have to either like pay more money for clean water or start paying for clean air. It seems like a dystopian type thing, but I honestly think it could happen if we continue on the path that we're going right now, with like littering and polluting the water and not like creating restrictions on businesses with their pollutants and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we were reading an article about like footprints and like how we are now. Many people think that like, oh, since I don't see the effects of climate change severely right now, I don't really care. But like the footprints that we're leaving will affect our children and our future, and then you're gonna start seeing it, and then like by then it may be too late to really like, oh, I care now. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I know, like, talking in like a little bit of a business sense, we call that hyperbolic discounting, where people will choose the outcome that's better in the short run than choosing the outcome that's better in the long run. And I think that's like a big issue when it comes to climate change, is because we don't see how it affects us right now, because it doesn't seem like it affects us right now. But in the long run, we need to be making decisions that like will make us happy in the future and will make a more sustainable life for like next generations.
Good point. Yeah. Okay, next question is, what do you think we can or should do about climate change? We as like people or as like society?
Yeah. So overall, I think climate change has to be taken down to like an individual level.
Okay.
I don't really think that if we keep it as this like huge issue, it's just gonna seem overwhelming and it's never gonna change.
Okay.
We need to kind of like cut it up into like little things that we can all be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like making it more of a small scale, so educating people on ways that to create climate change on a smaller scale, and then kind of like placing the responsibility of our future and, you know, our world onto people. And I think people will take and pick up that responsibility and run with it when they feel like they can actually make a change based on giving them small things instead of just making it like this big overarching climate change.
Yeah.
But, you know, like more education on how we can like properly each individually make a change, if that makes sense.
I understand. It's
Yeah.
like shift the perspective from like corporations do this,
Yeah.
society do this, government do this. Like,
Right.
what can I
do
myself
yeah,
to
exactly.
help? Yeah.
Shifting it to the people.
Right. This is a good question because my next question is, what do you think you can or should do about climate change, you individually?
Okay, so I have done a lot of research on food waste.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something that I'm pretty passionate about, and actually food waste is a huge contributor to climate change because decaying food releases methane, which is like one of the
Big greenhouse gases.
one of the greenhouse gases, and food waste is one of the largest contributors towards methane.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think finding sustainable ways to reduce our food consumption. So there's places in New York City where you can like buy leftover restaurant food for a cheaper price.
Okay.
And that way at the end of the night those restaurants aren't like throwing away all their leftovers.
Yeah.
Also, you know, being better about meal prepping and better about like making detailed lists so you're not just going to the store and buying whatever.
Right.
Also making lists of what's already in your pantry, stuff like that, because that will help you to decrease your food waste. Because I actually learned an interesting fact that a head of lettuce takes 25 years to break down in a landfill because the microorganisms can't get to it. So that's crazy. So like that food is like outlasting us sometimes. Like that's crazy. You would think that, you know, a head of lettuce would break down.
Yeah.
But like that food waste is gonna see like you graduate college. It's gonna see your kids graduate college. It's gonna see you get married. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that way. Also, another big thing that I think is kind of becoming a trend is using sustainable clothing. So like fast fashion, it uses a lot of water and a lot of energy, and like it doesn't end up lasting very long. They're very cheaply made, and so kind of switching to like maybe thrifting or, you know, paying a little bit extra but getting more sustainable and like long lasting clothes will kind of help decrease that fast fashion trend that we're on right now and help save some energy. So those are like two big things that I think that like we could do individually.
Right. I was on YouTube and I saw in New York there's like this lady that like she collects like fruits and vegetables that are waste and eggshells, and then she gives this to a farming company, and then they like give her money or like they give her like a lower price of like products. And yeah, the food waste thing of not just throwing away in the garbage but like reusing it and composting. Right. My mom was doing that. Like every time we had like orange slices and strawberry leaves, like we put it in like a small little bucket, and then she would put it in her garden and then use it as composting. Yeah.
Honestly, actually, since I told you like I'm pretty passionate about it, I know that University of Illinois has like a program called Grind to Energy where they take like the food scraps from the kitchen and they like grind it down, and then they like put it in a tank with a bunch of microorganisms, and then the microorganisms eat the food, and then it releases methane. But then they capture the methane and then they make it into like electricity. They use it to make electricity, or they use it to make gas.
That's so interesting.
Right. So that's kind of cool. So like, the university is kind of doing some things to help like decrease, you know, their carbon footprint and like.
Can we give them our food scraps? Because sometimes I feel so bad for like wasting the pasta and like.
I actually just did a project on that about how we could like decrease students' food waste and change their mindset towards food waste, and that was one of my suggestions.
Yes.
Is be able to like allow students to put their food waste into a bin, and then that bin can get ground up
Yes.
and like used to make, you know, electricity or like gas to power cars. But like obviously it was just a school project and it didn't get presented to anyone.
Oh!
But it would be cool if that could actually happen.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I'd be so down for that.
Yeah.
And I know friends who like like the Emmerich, they don't ever buy not toilet paper,
Paper towels.
paper towels.
Yeah.
They always use like cloth and then like wash.
Just wash
them.
it, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because, yeah.
it's a waste. Okay. Next question is, what are you already doing to address climate change? This is kind of like a similar question, but I think what it's asking is like, are you educating yourself? Are you spreading the awareness to others? Are you educating others? I think that's what it's asking.
Well, my family's like, I guess like just basic, like we're very much a recycling family. Like usually our recycling bin is more full than our trash bin and stuff like that. But I think like I am becoming more aware of different, like I learned about sustainable clothing through other students at U of I, and you know I learned about food waste from my own research, and I think like just I'm finding people that are passionate about different areas of climate change, and that's really cool because if we each take on a different section of it, then we can become very educated and passionate about that one area, and we can educate others instead of trying to know everything about all types of climate change, because that's a really daunting task, and that's going back to our other point about, you know, breaking it down into ways that we individually could, you know, create change. So I think like surrounding myself with friends and like people who are also passionate and willing to be educated and willing to make changes, to like help better our environment and help better our future. I think that's like the biggest thing we can do, or biggest thing I've been doing.
Right, that's good. All right. My last question is, do you think climate change is something that should be polarized with like right side and politics and governments and all of that?
I don't think it should be. I know it kind of is right now, but I really think if you look at the facts, you can't, you know, like it's irrefutable. There we go, that's the word. Irrefutable that it's like, it is an issue, and like it's something that affects all humankind. Like it doesn't affect blue, it doesn't affect red, like it affects us all. So I think, you know, politics should be set aside to like help the greater good. And I know that logistically, like how, you know, the different parties would go about creating climate change would look differently. And so I think, you know, putting aside our black and white views and trying to find a way to compromise and finding a way to like look at the greater good, you know, look at the future, stop doing what is just good for right now, and start looking towards a more sustainable future. And you know, where do we want to see the country going? Where do we want to see ourselves in the next 50 years? And when you look at that perspective, it's easier to put away your political views and your maybe like bitterness towards the other side, and really create change.
That's a good point, because like everybody just wants what's best for the country. They might have it different ways, but like coming together for like a middle ground.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what needs to happen.
Okay. Well, thank you, Abby, for your time and great responses. And
thank you for having me.
All right.